The dust cloud stirred on the horizon as Olivia Evans squinted against the setting sun, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. 10 years had passed since she'd fled Silverwater, vowing never to return. Yet here she was, gripping the worn leather reins of a rented mare, staring at the town that had once been her whole world, the town where Valentine Mitchell still lived. Spring of 1883 looked much the same as that fateful day in 1873, when she'd boarded the eastbound train with nothing but a carpetbag and shattered dreams. The main street stretched before her, lined with buildings weathered by the harsh Wyoming elements. Thompson's General Store still displayed colorful bolts of fabric in its window. The Silver Dollar Saloon's doors swung open as cowboys wandered in for their evening whiskey. Some things never changed. Olivia adjusted her blue traveling dress, suddenly conscious of her appearance. At 28, she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who'd made her own way in the world. Her honey blonde hair was pinned neatly beneath a modest hat, her face more angular than the rounded cheeks of her youth. The decade in Boston had transformed the naive rancher's daughter into a schoolteacher with purpose and independence. She nudged her horse forward, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The letter from Doc Pearson had been clear: her father was dying, asking for her one last time. No matter the pain of returning, she couldn't deny him that. As she rode down Main Street, faces turned, whispers followed. "Is that Olivia Evans?" Thought she was gone for good. Wonder if Val knows she's back. The name sent a jolt through her. Val. Valentine Mitchell, the cowboy who'd promised her the world, and then no, she wouldn't allow those memories to surface. Not yet. She had enough to contend with. She guided her horse toward her father's ranch on the outskirts of town. The Double E Ranch had once been prosperous, sprawling across 500 acres of prime grazing land. As the weathered arch came into view, Olivia could see the signs of decline. Fences needed mending, outbuildings cried out for fresh paint, and fewer cattle dotted the pastures. A young, stable hand she didn't recognize took her horse. "Miss Evans, we've been expecting you, madam. Your father's in the main house." Olivia nodded, removing her gloves as she walked the familiar path to the ranch house. Her boots stirred up dust on the porch steps as she hesitated before the door. Taking a deep breath, she knocked. The door swung open to reveal Mrs. Wilkins, the housekeeper who'd been with the family since before Olivia's mother passed. "Oh, my stars, Olivia." The older woman pulled her into a tight embrace, smelling of bread and lye soap. "Let me look at you, child." She held Olivia at arm's length. "Boston's treated you well, I see." "It's good to see you, Mrs. Wilkins," Olivia said, her voice catching. "How is he?" The housekeeper's face fell. "Not well, dear. The consumption's taken a hard toll. He has good days and bad." She lowered her voice. "Today's not been kind to him." Olivia swallowed hard. "I should see him right away." Mrs. Wilkins nodded, leading her through the familiar ranch house. Little had changed. Her mother's china still displayed in the hutch, her father's hunting rifle mounted above the fireplace. Yet there was a staleness to the air, a heaviness that spoke of illness and waiting. Outside her father's bedroom door, Olivia paused. "Is he? Does he know I'm coming?" "Yes, dear. It's all he's talked about these past weeks." With a nod, Olivia opened the door. The large bedroom, once dominated by her father's robust presence, now seemed to swallow the frail figure in the bed. Howard Evans, once the strongest man she knew, looked like a ghost of himself. His once thick hair had thinned to wisps of white, and his skin had a grayish pallor that made Olivia's stomach clench. "Father," she said softly, approaching the bed. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing the same sharp blue eyes she remembered. Recognition dawned slowly, then a weak smile spread across his face. "Olivia," he whispered, reaching a trembling hand toward her. "My girl came home." She took his hand, shocked by how light it felt, how fragile the bones beneath paper-thin skin. "I'm here, Father. Knew you would be." His voice was reedy, interrupted by a rattling cough. "Got so much to tell you, to make right." "Save your strength," she said, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. "We have time." His grip tightened with surprising strength. "No, we don't. That's one thing an old man knows for certain." Another cough racked his body. "I was wrong, Olivia, about everything, about him." Olivia stiffened. "Father, we don't need to speak of the past." "We do." His blue eyes fixed on hers with intensity. "I sent him away. Told him you'd gone willingly, that you didn't want him following. Paid him to stay clear when he wouldn't listen." The room seemed to tilt around her. "What are you saying, Valentine Mitchell?" "I lied to him, Olivia, just like I lied to you." Shame clouded his features. "Told you he'd taken my money to leave you be. That wasn't true." Blood rushed in Olivia's ears as decade-old wounds ripped open. She remembered that horrible night, her father showing her the bank draft, telling her Val had agreed to disappear in exchange for $500. How she'd collapsed, disbelieving at first, then devastated when Val never came for her. "Why?" The word came out strangled. "Because I was a proud, foolish man who thought he knew what was best for his daughter." His voice grew weaker. Couldn't see past his cowboy boots and empty pockets to the man he was. "By the time I realized my mistake, you were gone, and he was." He trailed off, overtaken by another coughing fit. Mrs. Wilkins appeared with a glass of water, helping him take small sips. Olivia sat frozen, her world shifting beneath her feet. "Where is he now?" she finally asked. Her father's eyes met hers. "He bought the old Simmons place 3 years after you left, made something of it, calls it the Northstar Ranch." Another wheeze. "He never married Olivia." The implication hung in the air between them. Olivia stood abruptly, needing space to breathe, to think. "You should rest," she said, retreating toward the door. "We can talk more tomorrow." Her father nodded weakly, already drifting back to sleep. In the hallway, Olivia leaned against the wall, her mind reeling. All these years, she'd believed Val had betrayed her, chosen money over their love. She'd built her new life on that betrayal, hardened her heart against the memory of him. Mrs. Wilkins approached with a sympathetic look. "Your room is ready, dear, just as you left it. Thank you." Olivia straightened, composing herself. "Has my father seen a doctor recently?" "Dr. Pearson comes by every few days. There's not much to be done now except make him comfortable." The housekeeper hesitated. "There's stew warming on the stove if you're hungry." Olivia nodded, though food was the furthest thing from her mind. She walked to her childhood bedroom, opening the door to find it eerily preserved, her quilt still on the bed, her books lined on the shelf, pressed flowers framed on the wall. She sat heavily on the bed, removing her hat and pins, letting her hair fall around her shoulders. The truth of her father's confession crashed over her in waves. Val hadn't betrayed her. Her father had manipulated them both, driven them apart with lies. And now, a decade later, she was back in Silverwater with Val just miles away, unaware of her return. Sleep came fitfully that night, haunted by memories of Valentine Mitchell, his dark hair falling over intense eyes, strong hands gentle on her waist as they danced at the harvest festival, his voice whispering promises against her ear. By morning, Olivia had made her decision. Before confronting Val, she needed to understand what had happened in the years she'd been gone. After checking on her father, who slept peacefully under Mrs. Wilkins' watchful eye, Olivia saddled the mare and rode into town. Silverwater bustled with morning activity, merchants opening shops, freight wagons delivering goods, women gathering at the millinery to exchange gossip. Olivia headed for the one place where truth flowed as freely as whiskey, the $Silver Saloon. At this hour, it would be quiet, with only the owner and perhaps a few early patrons. She tied her horse outside and straightened her riding skirt before pushing through the batwing doors. The interior was dim after the bright morning sunlight, smelling of stale tobacco and wood polish. Behind the bar, Otis Fletcher polished glasses, looking older but just as shrewd as she remembered. "Well, I'll be," he said, setting down his rag. "Olivia Evans. Heard you might be coming back." "News travels fast," she replied, approaching the bar but not sitting. "Small town." He grinned, revealing a new gap in his teeth. "Sorry about your pa. Tough break. Thank you." She glanced around the empty saloon. "I was hoping you might fill me in on some things. It's been a long time." Otis nodded sagely. "Reckon I know what or who you're asking about." "Valentine Mitchell's made quite a name for himself since you left." "Has he?" she asked, feigning casual interest. "Started as a hired hand at the Carson place, saved every penny. When old man Simmons wanted to sell up and move to California, Val was ready. Nobody thought he could make anything of that rocky northern parcel, but he proved them wrong." Otis poured 2 fingers of whiskey and slid the glass toward her. "On the house. You look like you could use it." Olivia hesitated, then took the glass. "How did he do it?" "Smart breeding. Brought in some hardy stock from up Montana way. Built that place up acre by acre." Otis leaned forward. "He's on the town council now, helped fund the new schoolhouse." The whiskey burned her throat, but she welcomed the warmth. "And his personal situation?" Otis didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Never married. There've been opportunities. Sarah Whitman from the Mercantile tried mighty hard, and Widow Jenkins would have had him in a heartbeat, but he never seemed interested." He studied her face. "Some men just love once, Miss Olivia." She set the empty glass down harder than intended. "Thank you for the information, Mr. Fletcher. He rides into town most Saturdays," Otis called as she turned to leave. "Tomorrow, as it happens." Olivia paused, nodded without turning, then pushed back through the doors into the sunlight. Her head spun with new information, and not just from the unaccustomed whiskey. Val had made something of himself, just as he'd always said he would. He'd stayed in Silverwater all these years, unmarried. Had he been waiting? Or had he simply moved on with his life, the memory of her fading like the wildflowers they'd once picked together in the high meadow? She spent the rest of the day at her father's side, listening to his labored breathing, occasionally reading to him when he woke. By evening, she'd decided she wouldn't wait for a chance encounter in town. Tomorrow, she would ride to the Northstar ranch and face Valentine Mitchell on her own terms. Dawn broke clear and crisp, the spring air carrying the scent of sage and possibility. Olivia dressed carefully in her best riding outfit, a forest green skirt and jacket over a cream blouse. She pinned her hair simply, foregoing the elaborate Eastern styles she'd adopted in Boston. "Going somewhere special?" Mrs. Wilkins asked as Olivia entered the kitchen. "I need to see someone," Olivia replied, accepting a cup of coffee. "I'll be back by midday to sit with Father." The housekeeper nodded knowingly. "North is a fine direction to ride this time of year." Olivia smiled despite herself. "The ranch he built, what's it like?" "Prosperous. Well kept. He's got a fine herd of cattle, better than most around here." Mrs. Wilkins packed a small bundle of biscuits. "For the ride," she said, handing them over. "And Olivia, good luck." The ride north took nearly an hour, giving Olivia too much time to second-guess herself. What would she say to him after all these years? What if he turned her away? What if he'd moved on in ways that weren't visible to town gossips? When the ranch came into view, she reined in her horse, taking in the sight. The Northstar Ranch spread across the rolling hills, its boundaries marked by sturdy fencing. The main house stood proud against the backdrop of distant mountains, 2 stories of solid construction, with a wide wraparound porch. Nearby stood a large barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Cattle grazed in the verdant pastures, testament to the success Valentine had carved from this once struggling parcel. As she approached the main house, a dog's bark alerted the inhabitants to her presence. A ranch hand emerged from the barn, watching her curiously as she dismounted. "Can I help you, madam?" he asked, approaching with a respectful nod. "I'm looking for Mr. Mitchell," Olivia said, her mouth suddenly dry. "Boss is out checking the north fence line." The young man squinted at her. "You're Howard Evans' daughter, aren't you? Just got back from back east." "Yes." News certainly traveled fast. "Do you know when Mr. Mitchell will return?" The ranch hand glanced toward the hills. "Should be back for noon meal. You're welcome to wait in the house. Mrs. Cooper, our housekeeper, is inside." Olivia shook her head. "I think I'll ride out to meet him, if you could point me in the right direction." The man gave her detailed instructions, and Olivia remounted, grateful for the chance to approach Val away from prying eyes. She followed a well-worn trail that wound through stands of aspen toward the northern boundary of the property. Her heart thundered in her chest with each step her horse took. She spotted him before he saw her. Valentine Mitchell sat astride a magnificent black stallion, his attention focused on a section of fence. The years had been kind to him. He was still lean and strong, though his shoulders seemed broader than she remembered. His dark hair, longer now, curled beneath his hat, and the beginnings of a beard shadowed his jaw. Olivia drew a steadying breath and urged her horse forward. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Val turn, one hand instinctively moving to the gun at his hip before dropping away. For a long moment, they simply stared at one another across 20 yards of Wyoming grassland. Olivia saw shock register on his face, followed by disbelief, and something else, something that made her heart contract painfully. "Olivia." His voice carried on the clear air, rough with emotion. She nudged her horse closer, stopping a few feet from him. "Hello, Val." He seemed rooted in place, drinking in the sight of her as if afraid she might vanish. "They said you'd come back, but I didn't." He trailed off, shaking his head slightly. "Your father, he's dying," she said simply. "He told me what he did, the lies he told us both." Val's jaw tightened, his knuckles white on the reins. 10 years too late," he said, the words carrying the weight of a decade's worth of pain. "Yes." She met his gaze steadily. "I believed him, Val. I believed you'd taken his money, chosen it over what we had. And I believed you'd left without a word, that you wanted a different life far from here, far from me." His voice roughened. "I came after you anyway, took the train east a month later. This was news. You came to Boston," he nodded. "Tracked you to that fancy school where you were teaching. Saw you walking with some well-dressed gentleman, laughing like you didn't have a care in the world." The memory clearly still pained him. "Figured your father had been right after all, you'd found the life you wanted." Olivia closed her eyes briefly. "Robert Harrington, the headmaster's son, he was courting me, but I never." She looked at Val again. "Why didn't you speak to me?" "Pride," he admitted. "Wounded pride and a broken heart don't make for good judgment. I came back here, determined to prove I could make something of myself." They fell silent, the weight of lost years hanging between them. A meadowlark called from a nearby fence post, its cheerful song incongruous with the moment. "Your ranch is beautiful," Olivia finally said. "Everything you always said you'd build." A ghost of a smile touched Val's lips. "Not everything." His eyes never left her face. "Why are you here, Olivia? Why come find me?" The directness of the question shouldn't have surprised her. Val had never been one to dance around difficult truths. "Because I needed to see you," she answered honestly. "To understand what happened, to see if there was anything left of what we once had. And is there? The question hung in the air between them. Before she could answer, a shout from down the trail interrupted them. One of Val's ranch hands galloped toward them, his horse kicking up dust. "Mr. Mitchell, fire at the Carson place. They're calling for all hands." Val immediately snapped to attention. "How bad?" "Barn's gone up, threatening the house. Mr. Carson's trying to get the horses out." Val nodded sharply. "Tell Cooper to send all available men. I'm right behind you." As the hand rode off, Val turned to Olivia. "I have to go." "Of course," she said, understanding immediately. "Can I help?" Surprise flickered across his face, followed by appreciation. "It'll be dangerous." "I'm not the same girl who left, Val." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Stay close to me." They rode hard toward the neighboring ranch, where black smoke already billowed into the clear sky. The Carson Ranch lay just east of Val's property, and within 15 minutes, they crested a rise to see the full extent of the disaster. The large barn was fully engulfed, flames licking hungrily at the dry timber. Men formed a bucket line from the nearby creek, trying desperately to keep the fire from spreading to the main house. Val and Olivia dismounted at a safe distance, tying their horses securely. "Mrs. Carson will be organizing the women at the house," Val told her. "They'll need help with the children and injured." Olivia nodded, already removing her riding jacket. "Be careful," she said, a plea in her voice that spoke of more than just this moment. Their eyes held briefly before Val turned, running toward where Frank Carson was directing men trying to save the livestock still trapped in the burning barn. For the next 2 hours, chaos reigned. Olivia worked alongside Mrs. Carson and neighboring women, tending to burns, keeping frightened children calm, and preparing food and water for the exhausted firefighters. Through the smoky haze, she occasionally glimpsed Val leading a panicked horse from the flames, shouldering a fallen beam so another man could escape, organizing men to wet down the roof of the house when embers threatened to ignite it. She'd always known he was brave, but watching him now, she saw the leader he'd become: respected, decisive, unflinching in the face of danger. As dusk fell, the fire was finally contained. The barn was a total loss, but the house had been saved, along with most of the livestock. Men collapsed in exhaustion on the ground, faces blackened with soot, hands blistered from the bucket line. Olivia moved among them with water and clean cloths, helping tend minor injuries. When she reached Val, sitting on an overturned barrel as he caught his breath, she saw the angry red burn along his forearm. "You need to have this looked at," she said, gently taking his arm to examine the wound. "It's nothing," he insisted, though he didn't pull away from her touch. "It most certainly is not nothing," she replied, carefully cleaning the burn with water and applying salve from Mrs. Carson's supplies. As she worked, she felt his eyes on her face. "You always were stubborn," he said softly. "Pot kettle," she returned, a faint smile playing at her lips as she bandaged his arm. When she finished, their eyes met, and the years seemed to fall away. For a moment, they were just Val and Olivia again, 2 young people deeply in love with a future stretching before them. The spell broke when Frank Carson approached, exhaustion etched on his weathered face. "Don't know how to thank you folks," he said, gripping Val's shoulder. "Would have lost everything without the neighbors pitching in." "No need for thanks," Val replied, standing. "We take care of our own out here." As the emergency subsided, people began to disperse, heading back to their own ranches in wagons and on horseback. The spring night had turned cool, and Olivia shivered in her thin blouse as she walked with Val to retrieve their horses. Without a word, he shrugged out of his coat, somehow still clean despite the day's events, and placed it around her shoulders. The warmth of him lingered in the fabric, enveloping her in a scent that was achingly familiar: leather, sage, and something uniquely Val. "I should get back to my father," she said reluctantly as they mounted up. Val nodded. "I'll ride with you to the Double E." When she began to protest, he added, "It's nearly dark and coyotes have been bold this spring." They rode in companionable silence, the events of the day having shifted something between them. The anger and hurt hadn't disappeared, but they'd been tempered by seeing each other in action, by remembering the people they'd been and discovering the people they'd become. As the lights of her father's ranch appeared in the distance, Val finally spoke. "You never answered my question from earlier." Olivia glanced at him, his profile strong in the fading light. "About whether anything remains between us." She considered her words carefully. "I think there's a foundation, Val. Whether we can rebuild on it after all this time, that I don't know," he nodded slowly. "Fair enough." As they approached the ranch house, he reined in his horse. "I won't come in. Your father and I have made our peace over the years, but this time is for you and him. You've spoken with him." This surprised her. "Once a year since you left. First time to tell him exactly what I thought of him." A wry smile crossed Val's face. "Later." "Well, two men can find common ground when they've both lost the same person." Olivia's throat tightened with emotion. She slipped off his coat, handing it back with reluctance. "Thank you for today. I'll be in town tomorrow," he said. "Usual business at the bank and mercantile." The invitation was clear in his eyes. "Perhaps I'll see you there," she replied, a tentative smile forming. Val touched the brim of his hat, his eyes never leaving hers. "Good night, Olivia." She watched him ride away, his straight back silhouetted against the darkening sky. Only when he disappeared from view did she turn toward the house, her mind swirling with possibilities she hadn't dared consider just a day before. Inside, she found Mrs. Wilkins dozing in a chair outside her father's room. The older woman startled awake at Olivia's approach. "Gracious, child. You're covered in soot. What happened?" Olivia briefly explained about the fire as they checked on her father, who slept peacefully, his breathing slightly less labored than the previous day. "Dr. Pearson came by," Mrs. Wilkins whispered as they left the room. "Says your father rallied a bit today. Having you home seems to have given him strength." After washing away the day's grime and changing into a fresh dress, Olivia sat by her father's bedside. In sleep, the hard lines of his face softened, making him look more like the father she remembered from childhood before her mother's death had turned him bitter and overprotective. "I saw Val today," she said softly to his sleeping form. "You were wrong about him, but I think you know that now." She touched her father's thin hand. "I'm still angry about what you did, but I understand you thought you were protecting me. I just wish you'd trusted me to know my own heart." Her father stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Olivia," he rasped. "You went to see him," she nodded, helping him sip water. "Yes, there's been a fire at the Carson ranch. Val helped save their home and livestock." Pride flickered in her father's tired eyes. "Good man, always was." He gripped her hand with surprising strength. "He built that ranch for you, you know. Every fence post, every head of cattle, it was all to prove himself worthy." "He had nothing to prove," Olivia said, throat tight. "I loved him as he was. I know that now." Her father's voice weakened. "Too late for many things, but maybe not for this. Not for you too." She sat with him until he drifted back to sleep, her mind made up. Tomorrow, she would go into town. She would find Valentine Mitchell and see if they could begin again. Morning came with a gentle rain that cleared by mid-morning, leaving the world washed clean and glistening. Olivia dressed with care in a blue dress that brought out her eyes, arranging her hair in a simple but flattering style. Mrs. Wilkins watched with knowing eyes but said nothing beyond offering to sit with Howard, while Olivia went to town. The ride into Silverwater felt different today, charged with anticipation rather than dread. The town bustled with Saturday activity, wagons and riders crowding the streets. Olivia tethered her horse outside the mercantile and stepped inside, pretending interest in bolts of fabric while scanning the store for Val. "He's at the bank," came a voice behind her. Olivia turned to find Sarah Whitman, the merchant's daughter, watching her with shrewd eyes. They'd never been close, even before Olivia left. "I beg your pardon, Valentine Mitchell." Sarah arranged jars of preserves with precise movements. "He's across at the bank, finalizing the loan for his new breeding stock." Her eyes assessed Olivia coolly. "He's done well for himself. One of the most eligible men in the county now." "So I've heard," Olivia replied evenly. Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Funny how people sometimes return when fortunes improve." "Yes, how fortunate my father is dying just when Val's ranch is prospering," Olivia responded, her voice deceptively sweet. "If you'll excuse me." Outside, Olivia took a calming breath before crossing to the bank. Through the large front window, she could see Val at the counter, signing papers as he spoke with the banker, Mr. Hughes. He looked every inch the successful rancher in a clean shirt and vest, his dark hair combed neatly beneath his hat. As if sensing her gaze, he glanced up, their eyes meeting through the glass. The conversation with the banker forgotten, Val quickly gathered his papers and hat, nodding a hasty farewell before striding toward the door. Olivia's heart pounded as he emerged into the sunlight, his tall frame casting a shadow across the boardwalk. "I hoped I'd see you today," he said, his voice low and intimate despite the busy street around them. "I said I might be in town," she replied, suddenly shy despite her determination. Val glanced around at the curious onlookers already taking note of their reunion. "Would you walk with me? There's somewhere I'd like to show you." She nodded, falling into step beside him as they walked away from the main street. They moved in comfortable silence until they reached a neat white building at the edge of town, the new schoolhouse she'd heard about. "You helped build this?" she asked as Val produced a key and unlocked the door. "Donated the land and some of the timber," he said, holding the door for her. Seemed right, somehow. Inside, the schoolhouse was bright and airy, with rows of desks facing a teacher's desk and blackboard. Large windows let in ample light and bookshelves lined one wall. "It's lovely," Olivia said, running her fingers along a desk. "The children of Silverwater are fortunate. We need a teacher," Val said quietly. "Miss Peterson is getting married next month and moving to Laramie with her husband." Olivia looked up sharply. "Are you offering me a position, Mr. Mitchell?" A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Just mentioning a possibility. I seem to recall you were teaching in Boston." "I was." She moved toward the windows, looking out at the mountains in the distance. "I've missed these views." Val came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him without touching. "What else have you missed, Olivia?" She turned to face him, courage rising within her. "You," she said simply. "I missed you every day for 10 years." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Val's expression softened, years of hurt giving way to something warmer. "I wrote you letters," he confessed. "Dozens of them, never sent a single one." "What did they say?" she asked, hardly daring to breathe. "That I was sorry for whatever I'd done to drive you away, that I was building something worthy of you. That no matter who you were with or where you went, a piece of my heart would always be yours." His voice roughened. "That I would wait for you even if you never came back." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "My father said something similar yesterday, that you built your ranch for me." "I did." Val took a step closer. "Every choice I made, I thought about what you would say, what you would think. Even when I believed you'd chosen a different life, I couldn't stop loving you." "I never stopped either," she whispered. "I tried. I even convinced myself I hated you for a while. But I never could, not really." Val reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a tear from her cheek. The gentle touch broke something open inside her, and Olivia moved into his arms, her face pressed against his chest. His heartbeat thundered beneath her ear as his arms enfolded her, strong and secure. "I've dreamed of holding you again," he murmured into her hair. "Afraid I'd forget how perfectly you fit." Olivia lifted her face to his. "I'm so sorry for believing the worst of you. And I'm sorry for not fighting harder, for not demanding the truth." His hand came up to cradle her face. "We've lost so much time." "Then let's not waste any more," she said, rising on tiptoe to press her lips to his. The kiss began tentatively, a reacquaintance after long separation, but quickly deepened with a decade of longing. Val's arms tightened around her waist, lifting her slightly as he poured years of emotion into the connection. When they finally parted, breathless, his eyes were dark with feeling. "Marry me," he said, the words more declaration than question. "Not tomorrow or next week. I know you need time with your father and we have things to sort through. But be my wife, Olivia. Let me take you home the way I should have 10 years ago." Joy bubbled up inside her, bright and effervescent. "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Yes, I'll marry you, Valentine Mitchell." His smile was radiant as he kissed her again, lifting her off her feet in an exuberant embrace that made her laugh against his lips. When he set her down, they stood with foreheads touching, breathing the same air, relearning each other. "I should get back to my father," she said reluctantly. "He was asking for me this morning." Val nodded, keeping hold of her hand as they walked out of the schoolhouse. "I'll ride out with you. Should pay my respects to Howard." They collected their horses and rode side by side toward the Double E Ranch, occasionally reaching across to touch hands, as if reassuring themselves that the other was real. The future stretched before them, not without challenges but full of promise. As they approached the ranch, Mrs. Wilkins came hurrying out to meet them, her face grave. "Olivia, thank goodness. Your father's taken a turn. Dr. Pearson's with him now." Cold fear replaced the warmth of moments before. Olivia quickly dismounted, Val right behind her as they rushed into the house. In the bedroom, Dr. Pearson stood beside Howard's bed, his expression somber as he packed his bag. "How is he?" Olivia asked, moving to her father's side. Howard's breathing was shallow, his skin ashen. "The consumption's progressed rapidly," the doctor said quietly. "I've given him something for the pain, but—" He shook his head slightly. "It's a matter of hours now, maybe a day. I'm sorry, Miss Evans." Olivia nodded numbly, taking her father's frail hand. "Thank you, doctor," as Dr. Pearson left. Val stepped forward, his presence solid and reassuring at her back. "I'll wait outside," he murmured. "Give you time with him." "No," Howard's voice rasped suddenly, his eyes fluttering open. "Stay, Valentine, please." Val looked to Olivia, who nodded. He moved to stand beside her at the bedside. "You found each other," Howard said, his breathing labored. "Good, that's good." "We did, Father," Olivia confirmed, squeezing his hand gently. Howard's gaze shifted to Val. "You'll take care of her, not that she needs much taking care of." "Always was stronger than me. With everything I have," Val promised solemnly, "for as long as I live." A ghost of a smile touched the dying man's lips. "Should have trusted you both from the start. Wasted years." He was overtaken by a coughing fit that left him weaker. "Save your strength," Olivia urged, wiping his brow with a cool cloth. Howard shook his head slightly. "No time for that now, need you to know. I'm proud of you, Olivia, the woman you've become. Your mother would be too." Tears slid down Olivia's cheeks as she bent to kiss her father's forehead. I love you, Father, I forgive you. And you, Howard turned his gaze to Val, built something fine. Man of your word. Val nodded, emotion tightening his throat. The ranch will be Olivia's home now. I'll make sure the double E is taken care of too. Howard seemed to relax at this, his breathing easing slightly. Tell me about your plans, want to hear. For the next hour they sat with Howard as he drifted in and out of consciousness. They spoke of their hopes for the future, of combining the ranches, of children who would one day run across the pastures their grandfather had built. Though Howard spoke little, his eyes showed he heard and understood, peace settling over him as the sun began to set. As twilight deepened into night, Howard Evans took his final breath, his hand still clasped in his daughter's, Val's strong presence beside her. Grief washed over Olivia, but it was tempered by the knowledge that her father had died with burdens lifted, seeing the future he'd nearly destroyed restored before his eyes. The days that followed passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and condolence calls. Val remained constantly at Olivia's side, handling the practical matters she couldn't face, providing quiet strength when she needed it most. The entire town turned out for Howard Evans' funeral, paying respects to one of Silverwater's founding ranchers. 2 weeks after they laid her father to rest, Olivia stood in the parlor of the Double E, surrounded by his belongings, trying to decide what to keep and what to let go. Val found her there, staring at her father's favorite chair. "You don't have to do this now," he said gently, coming to stand beside her. "There's no rush." She leaned into his solid warmth. "I know, but I can't move forward while living in the past." She gestured around the room. "This house holds so many memories, good and bad. I need to make peace with all of it." Val's arm encircled her waist. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. If you want to live here, we'll make the Double E our home. If you'd rather start fresh at Northstar, we can do that too." Olivia turned in his embrace, looking up at the man who'd loved her through a decade of separation. "Take me to see your home, our home," she corrected herself. "I want to see what you've built with new eyes." The next morning, they rode to the Northstar Ranch. This time, Olivia saw everything differently, not as an observer, but as someone returning to where she belonged. The house Val had built was spacious yet welcoming, designed with a family in mind. He showed her through each room, watching her reaction carefully. "The eastern exposure in this room is perfect for a nursery," she commented, standing in a sunny upstairs bedroom. "Children should wake with the sun." Val's expression softened. "You want children, don't you?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. He gathered her close. "I've dreamed of our children for longer than I care to admit. Little girls with your smile, boys with your courage. And your stubbornness," she teased, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. "When shall we marry?" he asked when they parted. "I've waited 10 years. I find I don't want to wait much longer." Olivia considered. A month of mourning seems respectful. Early summer would be beautiful for a wedding. "June, then," Val agreed. "Just enough time to finish the new furniture I've been working on." "You make furniture?" This was a side of him she hadn't known. He smiled sheepishly. "Winters are long. I started with a rocking chair, then a table. Found I had a knack for it." "Is there anything you can't do, Valentine Mitchell?" she asked, marvel in her voice. "Live without you," he answered simply. "That's the one thing I've failed at completely." The weeks leading to their wedding flew by in a flurry of preparations. Olivia divided her time between settling her father's affairs and readying for her new life. She accepted the position at the schoolhouse, beginning after the summer break. The Double E would continue operations under the management of the foreman, who'd worked for her father for years, with Val overseeing both properties. On a perfect June morning, with wildflowers carpeting the meadows and clear blue skies overhead, Olivia Evans became Mrs. Valentine Mitchell in a ceremony on the porch of their Northstar home. The entire town turned out to witness the union everyone agreed was long overdue. "I've been waiting to take you home," Val whispered as he carried her over the threshold that evening, his voice husky with emotion. Olivia wound her arms around his neck, heart full to bursting. "I'm already home," she replied. "Wherever you are is home to me." That night, as stars appeared in the velvet sky outside their window, they reaffirmed the love that had endured separation, misunderstanding, and the passage of years. In Val's arms, Olivia found the belonging she'd sought since leaving Silverwater. In her love, Val found the completion of everything he'd worked to build. 5 years later, the Northstar Ranch had doubled in size and prosperity. The main house rang with the laughter of twin 3-year-old boys, Howard and James, while Olivia cradled their newborn daughter, Rose, on the front porch swing. Val sat beside them, his arm protectively around his family as they watched the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in brilliant hues. "Thinking about your father?" Val asked, noticing Olivia's contemplative expression as she gazed at their children. "Wondering what he would think of all this," she admitted. "Of how happy we are of his grandsons running wild across the ranch he tried to keep me from." Val's hand gently stroked their daughter's downy head. "I think he'd be proud. In the end, he wanted this for us." Olivia leaned against her husband's shoulder, content in a way she'd never imagined possible during those lonely years in Boston. "It was worth the wait," she said softly. "Every moment apart led us here." Val pressed a kiss to her temple. "I would have waited forever," he said, the words a promise fulfilled. "But I'm grateful every day that you came home." As darkness settled over the Northstar Ranch, the family sat together, surrounded by the legacy of love that had overcome every obstacle. The mistakes of the past had given way to the blessings of the present, and the future stretched before them, as vast and promising as the Wyoming sky. In the distance, a lone star appeared, the North Star, constant and true. Like the love that had brought Olivia and Val back together against all odds, it would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. A reminder that some bonds could never truly be broken, only temporarily obscured, until the right time came for them to shine again.